Okay, folks, let's talk about it. This has to deal with Tulsi Gabbard. Now, in the video that we're going to play here, she will be taking legal action against the Biden-Harris administration for putting her on a terrorist watch list. Now, I have my differences with Tulsi Gabbard. There are some policies in which I don't support. And, let's face it, we here at Hardlands Media have way early on did defend Tulsi Gabbard, especially in the early days of the 2020 primary when she was being smeared as a Putin puppet, an Assad apologist, and she's going to run as a third party and she's going to become Trump's vice president. None of those three are real. None of those four things I mentioned are real or true. That was fake news done by the media. That was, in many ways, corporate media's revenge on Tulsi Gabbard after in 2016 she endorsed Bernie Sanders and called out the shenanigans at the DNC convention, that the DNC, the DCCC to be more precise, were doing during that primary. So yes, there's the good and the bad was the good. And I, for one, don't like it when a U.S. citizen, and I don't care where you're politically aligned in, is being put on a watch list. And this impacts us all. If you are conservative or Republican, libertarian, green, socialist, liberal, or progressive, no matter who you worship or the color of your skin, you should have the freedom and safety to move about and not being spied in on by your government. But heroic U.S. whistleblowers and journalists have sacrificed not only their freedom, but their own lives in warning us that this is what's going on. And I don't like that this happened to Tulsi Gabbard, and I don't like this happens to private sovereign citizens as well. So let's start from the beginning. I want to pull up this article, this video here. Shout out to Hotspot for pulling up this video. And I think it's important that we share this, and no one should be going through this at all, period. This is wrong and unjust, and this is how a society gets to 1984. Better yet, not only it's 1984, it's Brave New World and Fahrenheit 451. Someone decided to staple all three of those books together and say, this government sounds like a good idea. It's a dystopian nightmare. We're losing our freedoms, folks.
So what exactly did Tulsi Gabbard do to get added to the terror watch list? It came the day after she criticized the Biden administration right here on The Angle.
Our foreign policy decisions are being made by unelected people in the military-industrial complex who are profiting from us being in a constant state of war, and the national security state that has more power to undermine our freedoms and liberties when we are in a state of war. Kamala Harris does not have the strength to stand up to the military-industrial complex.
Okay, that's wild. Joining me now, Tulsi Gabbard, former U.S. Congresswoman, Fox News contributor. Tulsi, now, you serve this country in uniform, even getting deployed to Iraq. Thank you for going, unlike Tim Walz. And now you're being surveilled. I mean, it's a form of surveillance or hassling and intrusion upon your freedom to move by the government. What is this? I mean, I didn't believe it really when I first heard about it. I said, oh, that can't be. But how does this make you feel?
Laura, this is a clear act of political retaliation. There's no other way to put it. You laid out the sequence of events the very next day after my conversation with you on the air, warning the American people about how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency would be. I was placed on this domestic terror watch list, which is called the Quiet Skies list under the Department of Homeland Security. The clear pain and real visceral hurt that comes from this is, as you mentioned, like many Americans, I enlisted because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11, to go after the Islamist terrorists who attacked us on that day, and to now have my own government now turn around and put me on a domestic terror watch list. It hits to the core. And
now, here's the other issue with being put on this list. It means your own government deems you as a threat. So if you speak out, if you are critical, if you call out the policies of Democratic and Republican lawmakers, whether you're a high-profile person or use it as a civilian, you're on the list. Now, to be clear here, because I think Tulsi Gabbard having a high profile, I think, and I want to be hopeful for this, she'll probably get off that watch list. Possibly. Maybe. But why are we in this world in the first place? The aftermath of the 9/11 attacks and everything else, we have given up our security for supposed and our freedoms For what? To constantly be spied in, surveillance 24/7. I mean, anything that you say on text or email or phone call gets recorded. And I don't care if anyone says, well, Snapchat deletes them. No, it doesn't. There's always a record. There's always folks, there's always a record. There's always a record. I'm going to say that again. There's always a record. You're being spied in on. Say hello to you. Hey, what are the names of your NSA or CIA handlers? I occasionally, sometime I leave out a plate of cookies out there for them, because they're spying in on me. They're probably spying in on you too. Hey, but be sure to give them a hug. They're probably overwhelmed and stressed out.
And is the ultimate sense of betrayal. But we look at why they are doing this. It has a chilling effect. It sends a warning both to me and to anyone else who even thinks about daring to criticize our own government, which is a guaranteed protected right under the First Amendment.
Yeah.
That we will be subject to a violation of our Fourth Amendment right to privacy through this kind of surveillance. And that's the biggest stress that's been caused by this entire situation, Laura, is now forever. I will always be looking over my shoulder, wondering if and how our government in any of these different agencies is surveilling me, watching me. Are they reading my text messages? Are they listening to my phone calls?
Yeah, I was going to say yes, yes, and yes. That's what I would guess, at least. Now, in a letter from whistleblower attorney Tristan Levitt, he writes that the special mission coverage in Ms. Gabbard's case reportedly involves 2 explosive detection canine teams, 1 transportation security analyst and explosives, 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals on every flight Ms. Gabbard boards. I mean, I'm not laughing, Tulsi, because this is literally like the Soviet Union, China today, North Korea, any totalitarian regime. But
it's always been this way. Political police, open the door.
Donald Trump's the totalitarian, right? He's the dictator.
And by the way, you could say this started under the Bush-Cheney administration, but it started even under previous other administrations. The spying, the surveillance, both Democratic and Republican lawmakers, people associated with Democratic and Republican presidential administrations, opened the door and laid down the foundations for the system we are in now.
And waiting. Okay.
Yeah, this is just, and this is what we know about, and we know about it because of these brave whistleblowers from the Air Marshal Service who are coming forward. What I'm questioning is, what are the things that are happening in our government that I don't know about? How long have they been surveilling me? This is just a recent occurrence.
Let's just say, folks, okay, it's probably been going on a lot longer, all of us being spied in on and checked in on. But I'm going to be generous here. And I'm pretty sure all of you will have a different year and start date. But let's say after 9/11. So since 2001. So almost 23 years of the U.S. government spying in on its citizens. And what has it learned? You got you got a lot of crazy people out there. You got a lot of smart people out there. You got a lot of brilliant people out there. And you got a lot of dumb people out there. But no government should be doing this to its own citizens, no matter what status, what their economic situation is. No government should be doing this.
I would not be surprised to know that there are other government agencies who are also being weaponized against political opponents, those who dare to challenge this regime, the Biden-Harris administration. And that's really what it comes down to, and why they have to be stopped.
They have
we
to
are
be
guaranteed
defunded.
the right to life,
be
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I cannot be free. And you pointed to this. Yes, exactly. I cannot be free so long as my government is breathing down my neck and watching my every move.
Real quick, hold on. This is going to be a petty question. And I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm not. But do you think Kamala maybe had something hypothetically scenario? She probably was like, Tulsi Gabbard embarrassed me twice. Put her on a watch list. You think that's what happened? You think that's a possible scenario? Type 1 for Jesus Christ, Kit. Can you be serious for once? There are serious matters happening here. And you think a politician would be this petty, this vindictive, this vengeful? Shame on you. Hashtag unsubscribe. Type 2. Nah, I could see it happen. These politicians are scumbags. They're criminals. They're the lowest of the low. They're as vindictive as they can get. They are beyond petty. Petty isn't even a proper word. Shame on you for using the word petty. I could come up with many other words. But yeah, I could see it happening in one iteration or the other. I wonder how many 2s will be in the chat. So that means if all of you said anything mean or gave constructive criticism to a politician, chances are 10 out of 10, life-changing statement, you're being spied in on. Frank, Bob, how you doing? Those are my NSA handlers. How you doing, guys? Keep on doing the great work. But there's always a consequence in action. And so Tulsi Gabbard recently did a statement on another show in which she has said that she is going to be taking legal action against this administration. No one should be on a watch list, period. I don't like people being spied in on. I don't care what their political affiliation is. So let's hear it out.
You know, the closest word that I could think of that can begin to describe what I felt and what I feel in learning that actually, according to these whistleblowers, that I am on this Quiet Skies list, that my own government, my president, my commander in chief is targeting me as a potential domestic terrorist. The closest word that comes to mind is a complete sense of betrayal. And it's betrayal because I, like so many Americans, enlisted because of the Islamist terrorist attacks on 9/11, enlisted to serve in our country's military, to ensure the safety, security, and freedom of the American people, to go after and defeat and destroy those Islamist terrorists who continue to pose the greatest short and long-term threat to us, to our security, and to our freedom. And so now, after serving over...
Tim Higgins writes, is she blinking Morse code? Good question. Tulsi, blink twice if you're in danger.
For 21 years and continuing to serve.
That's twice. All right. That's 2.
In our nation's military, my own government has labeled and is targeting me directly now as a domestic terrorist, as they are many others. I'm not alone in this. Of course, this list is not being made public, but we can look to what the Biden-Harris administration has done in multiple cases of how they have, there have been leaked conversations, leaked files, leaked documents, and even statements they've made in public saying that this threat of domestic terrorism and extremism is so great, and often very likely it is those in the military or military veterans who are these potential threats here at home. It is more than a slap in the face. It's more than a punch in the gut. It is a complete betrayal coming from our own government that they are using our taxpayer dollars, our resources. They're using people like the air marshals as weapons and pawns to target their political opponents. And that's really what this is all about. As a person, I feel, not only for myself, but for my brothers and sisters in uniform, for those who have literally put their lives on.
I want to read a super chat here. This is from Italian Stallion. Great name, by the way. Us Italians are stallions, after all. Tipped $5. Since the Patriot Act, veterans get put on the list when they leave the military. Only major difference is Tulsi can afford to push back. Most can't. Yes, this is a sad fact. And it wouldn't surprise me if there were other nefarious ways in which our government is not only spying in on our veterans, but even all of the civilians too. How many whistleblowers sacrifice their lives? How many journalists and reporters and investigators sacrifice their lives or sacrifice their freedoms just to inform us that we are losing our liberties, our freedom, our right to speak out, our right to criticize? I want to put down this video here for one quick second. I'll continue on playing the rest of it. But look, I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in free speech. I believe that all of us have a right to speak out, and I believe that we all have a right to hear each other's opinions. Now, the answer is, yeah, there are some bad people out there, and there are some crazy, crazy, crazy people out there. We have all seen that. But I'm going to be idealistic here, and that's my biggest weakness. I'm too much of an idealist. I've been told that before by a lot of people close to me. It is a weakness. It truly is a weakness. But I like to believe that the world is filled with good people. Honorable, good, rational people that just want to be left alone and live their life as best as they can in a world that's understandably out of their control. But I'd rather live in a world where I'm challenged to think critically about different issues. And I say on this show, even after we're done, even when I'm done wrapping it up, I encourage you, my audience, to hear other perspectives and points of view. I'm not asking you to be a constant supporter or consuming up news from different people all the time, 24/7. But it's always important to hear other perspectives and not dismiss them, to see the bigger picture. We here at Hard Lens Media, we've interviewed so many great guests and individuals, be they libertarians or Greens or socialists, activists, organizers, other content creators, other journalists. And the thing is, if you're going to be a free speech absolutist, you have to support it unequivocally. Now, I may not agree with everything that Tulsi Gabbard is saying, but I don't support the idea or the concept of veterans, high-profile people, and civilians being targeted by our government to be spied in on, to be put on a watch list. We have lost our freedoms. Last year, I was, sending a loved one home, dropped them off at the O'Hare Airport here in Chicago. And I lamented at the fact that there was once a time when you could walk with your loved one all the way to their terminal and see them get on the plane and see the plane depart and fly off. And you didn't have to worry about the plane falling apart or anything like that. Geez, Boeing, can you be a little bit better? Probably not. But I remember that time. I remember a time when you didn't have to worry about being canceled or censored. I remember a time we didn't have to walk on eggshells. I remember a time when things seemed a little bit simpler. Now, maybe that's just my rose-colored glasses on my face. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I'm probably wrong. I probably am. But where we're at now, this doesn't work. And we should all be against it.
On the line to go after and defeat those terrorists who attacked us on 9/11, those who continue to pose a threat to us today, and all of that, to have our own government come and point and set their sights on us and set their targets on us, saying that, no, actually, we are the domestic terrorists. Why? Of course, there's no explanation given, which is why we are taking legal recourse, why I'm so grateful for these whistleblowers and having the courage to stand up and present the evidence and proof, because, these secret lists, there are many of them. Quiet Skies is one of them. There are others that have occurred ever since 9/11 with the Patriot Act, weaponizing these institutions against Americans. All of these secret lists, there's no recourse. There's no way to know truly if you're on the list, how to get off the list, why you're on the list, why my own government is seeing me as a domestic terrorist. I can't tell you why, but I can make some assumptions based on the record of this.
Well, one, you probably got Hillary Clinton angry at you. Number two, you embarrassed Kamala Harris not once but twice. So, I mean, I could see that. I could see, because let's face it, folks. High school never ends. There's always a bully out there, and Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton are the mean girls, because they just didn't like what Tulsi did. So I could see that happening, but also because we have a system that is just absolutely petty and will spy in on you, a sovereign citizen.
Administration, that this is yet another tool they are using against their political opponents. Yeah. Obviously, I've been very outspoken about the dangers of the Biden-Harris administration to our democracy and to our freedom and to our national security. And this is what happens as a result.
Now, I want to be clear here. Taking legal action is probably going to be necessary. I don't think anyone should be on a watch list. I don't think anyone that I don't want anyone that disagrees with me to be on a watch list. I don't want anyone who agrees with me to be on a watch list. I don't want people of any faith, religion, no matter how they identify as, or the color of their skin, or who they voted for, or what generation they're part of. I don't want anyone to be spied in on. You think spying in on everyone 24/7, you're going to find a bad guy? What you're doing is you're turning the very people that you're supposed to protect into the enemy. And when you view everyone as the enemy, who are you protecting except the corporate overlords and the masters? This surveillance system, NSA, all this stuff, all what you have done is vilify and make targets out of the people that you're quote unquote supposed to protect. The U.S. citizen, U.S. politicians, what you have done since 2001. And again, this has probably been going on much longer, but since 2001, our politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, have sold us down the river. They don't care. They don't care what happens to us. They're willing to keep us obedient. They're willing to keep us subservient. And we have to push back. Now, to be clear here, I think Tulsi Gabbard's going to be okay. I think she'll probably get off that list, hopefully. Okay. But as for the rest of us, our fight is still ongoing. And this is what I mean by being a free speech absolutist. If you are for free speech, you have to speak up, because if we give this up, that is it. The doors are closed and it is never coming back. I'd rather live in a world in which I could be challenged critically, to have discussions. And yes, guess what? I don't believe in the concept of changing a person's mind or saying, oh, I own them in a debate. Oh, who cares about that? No one cares about that. But I at least want to have someone to say, oh, I didn't see that before. That's a very interesting perspective, because I have been challenged critically. I've had other people mention some things to me as in regards to policy or politics, in which, okay, that's how you view things. I'd rather live in that world than in a world when we're all quiet, our heads are down, looking down at the ground because we're afraid to look up, looking down at the ground because we're afraid of the gazing eye of Big Brother. This is bigger than Tulsi Gabbard. This is bigger than anyone else. This is about all of us and our right to be free, our right to speak out. Because if we don't, you'll be looking down at the ground while the next generation looks up at you and say, why didn't you fight? I don't want to look them in the eye and say why we didn't fight. I'd rather them look at us with pride as we look up too, knowing that we reversed this dystopian nightmare that we're in. I remember when things were a little bit simpler. Maybe that's just my bias. Maybe that's just my idealism. But what we have now just doesn't work.